Okay, my age name. Um, so my name is Austin Smith Jr. My Indian name is Kamayach. It's a Keech Wasco name. I got that from my grandfather. I am 38 years old. My job title is General Manager for the Branch of Natural Resources for the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs. My position is so as a general manager, my salary grade is 18 on the tribal scale, and that starts at 89,000 to 146,000 a year. So my position requires a minimum of a undergraduate degree. So I have a bachelor's of science, and I also have two associate of science and a general studies degree. Also, it requires at least a minimum of 10 years as a manager, and as well as experience at a minimum of 3 years of supervisor role. So, as a natural resources manager, I oversee multiple programs that include natural resources. So, I'm over the forest management, fire management, water and soils, wildlife, fisheries, cultural resources, general planning and intergovernmental planning for natural resources. The responsibilities I have include managing a 8 to 9 direct reports that oversee these departments. So a part of that is also intergovernmental, working with tribal council, with executive committees and executive branches. Those include primarily fish and wildlife, culture and heritage, forestry, timber, working with multiple enterprises, water power enterprise, as well as forestry industry and forest product industry. And so there's a lot of detailed, and of course working with the federal agencies, the state agencies, non-governmental organizations, and then of course the people. That's the main, working in behalf of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, the multiple tribes, tribal members, this generation, previous generations, and the next generation. So you have to be a really good communicator. A lot of that is public speaking, being transparent with your opinions on your duties and roles as a manager. A lot of the hard skills are, you have to kind of know it all about resources. So when I'm asked questions about what's water quality, what's the timber looking like, what's the forest looking like, why do you have air quality, so you have to kind of be the go-to on that information, as well as understanding history and where we're at, why we're here, and the status of natural resources. So those are kind of the key ones. And then developing reports, being able to do like a PowerPoint presentation, being able to pull up Word, Excel documents and go through those proficiently, and as well as run and facilitate meetings and reports, not only for tribal council, executive committees, as well as other groups. So I do a lot of presentations with other agencies as well, and leaders. I love doing is hunting and fishing, and a part of that, my job is protecting and preserving, enhancing those. Like you want to have fresh fish that comes back to the tribe. It's my sole responsibility to help manage fish. We manage hatcheries, we manage habitats where deer, elk, and all wildlife species rely on. So I really enjoy the fact that I'm responsible for the management of those resources.
What's your least favorite part?
Meetings galore. As soon as I wake up, I'm in a meeting, and to the end of the day, I'm in a meeting. It's time consuming, but I understand why it's important. But yeah, meeting after meeting. The advice would be understand the history of what the treaty really means. Treaty means sovereignty, the rights that our ancestors preserved and protected for our generation. Read that treaty and then understand that natural resources is a key part of that treaty on what makes us natives. Very much so. Summers for sure is wildfires happen, and so that really affects my job duties. So it puts all of my wildfire firefighters and foresters and all other resources at a halt to go and fight the fire, as well as extreme fire conditions is dangerous, but it's also it can damage resources when it's a wildfire that's out of control. As far as the winter conditions, it's the same thing. The high severity of winter causes a lot more people to go out and cut more firewood, which then impacts the wildlife resources that are out there resting in these areas. But it also removes a lot of fuels from the area, which kind of is productive for wildfires, but at the same time, it's very extreme. And then, of course, you have a lot of other extremes of increase in the water table. So that's like the net benefit, but also there's also a issue with that as well. It creates flooding and creates more sediment in the water, which then affects our fish. So it's all the extremes kind of play role to role. So with climate variability and extremes, we have really long summers, longer burning seasons, less water in the water table. That affects our natural resources. Everything is drying up. An example is huckleberries aren't able to, they're not able to grow as long. They germinate faster, and then they dry up faster with the higher temperatures, and as well as the water table itself. Some of the extremes are there's no snowpack on the mountains due to the climate extremes, hotter weather, so that means less groundwater available, also less surface water for livestock, deer, wildlife species, for the trees, for the roots, for the plants. So that is very, very extreme for us. And then as we come down into the infrastructure areas where water quality is a concern, the warming of the water does increase the disease, algae blooms, disease primarily in aquatic species like fish, frogs, everything else. So with warming of the water, it actually creates a negative for our resources. So that's the primary issue. And then of also consumption. When you're drinking water, it can affect that as well. So non-renewable, I would say that there's a lot of we don't have a lot of extract of non-renewables here, other than maybe gravel is being removed. Renewable resources is everything from water to timber to boughs to cones. Those type of things can be utilized for, like, say, biomass, for fuel, for homes, for products. The non-renewable piece is kind of stuff that we do lack here. If we go into energy, there's a lot of uses for energy, from like hydropower, wind, and solar. So those are things that the tribes may have more interest in. So very heavily, part of my job in protecting treaty rights is understanding the treaty, understanding the codes, the constitution, and bylaws that were adopted by our leaders, and advising tribal council on a regular basis when they go to meetings and when they go to talk about funding available to protect our resources, as well as working with the government. So I work quite a bit with the federal government on protection of natural resources and treaty rights. That includes everything from fishing rights, hunting rights, gathering rights, the habitats, the water quality, water settlements. All of that is all played part of water use. Can be anywhere from treaty reserved rights in areas within our 10.2 million acres of ceded lands, the 640,000 acres of our reservation lands, and then all of our other lands that are outside of those boundaries or within the boundaries of our Aboriginal areas.
What are all the different departments that deal with wildfire, and what do they do?
Okay, so a lot of my departments, for one, the main one is fire management. That's one of our departments that includes a hotshot crew, fuels crew, modules, heavy equipment, fuels planners, and our different prevention and suppression efforts. That's their primary role. Then part of the fuels, it branches off into the forestry department. They deal with wildfire quite a bit, as in managing habitats, managing forest practices out there, and then application of wildfire back into those ecosystems. So that's the wildland fire, forestry, and so culture and heritage also is culture and heritage and the cultural resource department under my natural resources. They involved with planning for, say they want to go out and burn a meadow to enhance wakamu and different camas roots. They do part of that, as well as working with the planning groups to do burns in huckleberry meadows and fields to ensure that those are enhanced and maintained to reduce the fuels that are encroaching on huckleberry bushes. So using fire is a tool there. So they utilize it. They also use it for to burn in tule fields. So tule mats, they could harvest those for tule mats. And then of course the habitat types where fish and wildlife utilize in the watersheds. Those departments are heavily integrated into utilizing wildfire and managing for wildfire. Same thing, cleaning up the forest to benefit those species. Water and soil also involved. The amount of water in a watershed depends on the amount of growth, and so that in turn, if you have a lot of water in an ecosystem, then it dries out, and then you have a dry area that easily can burn. So wildfire is really common also in the water and soils.
What has climate change impacted our resources?
Yeah, so climate change, it has increased the heat within the forest, which in turn increases the amount of drought, cause drought. Trees, increases the amount of bugs aren't allowed. They're allowed to colonize and grow a lot more in the warmer weathers. In fact, they get outbreaks where they take over whole forest types and kill trees, as well as a disease that's found within the roots of trees, as well as the different parasites that live in trees take over and they eventually kill the trees. And so that is really common with climate change, as well as regression of plant types in different elevations and ecosystems. So now they're regressing out of areas, everything's dying off, and then lightning strikes and that stuff goes up in flames. Then it also affects the flora and fauna and the timing of annual and perennial plants that are growing. So when they grow, typically there's a system that's out of sync right now. So an example I like using is when a deer comes out of winter time and she's pregnant and she's going to go up into her summer range, where there's a certain type of plant that grows that assists her in her nutrition rate to produce milk for her fawn that she's going to birth. Those are not there because of the system so warm, the fact that those plants don't grow. If they do grow, they're out of timing's out of sync. And so when they get up there, there's not enough plants for them to eat on. And so they suffer, their body fitness suffer, as well as their lactation suffers, which then affects the fetus grown within a deer. And then if they are born, they're born very small and they don't get the nutrition. And as soon as they go into winter, they won't typically survive, because then you're dealing with the extreme winter types where the fat preserves on a deer or a fawn going into winter are not sufficient enough where they don't survive. So that's an example of climate change impacts. Bigfoot hasn't been fully understood, but there's been sightings amongst my staff, myself, and previous people out in the woods. So I can't definitively say he's real, and I can't say he's not real.